Perfect. I looked my son-in-law, Bradley, dead in the eye and said that single word when he barged into my home office on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-December. He was standing there, leaning both hands on my solid oak desk, looking incredibly smug as he announced that 25 members of his family, the Millers, were coming to spend Christmas at my house. I smiled, closed my notebook slowly, and spoke with absolute calm. Perfect. I am going on vacation. You all can do the cooking and cleaning. I am not a servant. Bradley's face went pale immediately, as if he had just seen a ghost. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. What he did not know was that the real surprise was only beginning. My name is Howard Vance. I am 59 years old. I am a retired civil engineer who spent 35 years managing industrial construction projects. I have been a widower for 3 years, and this large house in Naples, Florida, is a property I designed and paid for with my own hard work. But for the last 2 years, ever since my daughter Claire married Bradley, I have been treated like an unpaid domestic employee in my own home. It started with small things. Bradley asked to stay in the guest suite above my garage to save money for a down payment on their own house. But within months, he began treating my main house like a free resort. Howard, get me some coffee. Howard, clean this up. Howard, cook for my friends, and I, because I loved my daughter and wanted to keep the peace, always complied. I thought I was helping the young couple get on their feet, but my silence only made Bradley more entitled and bolder every day. On that Tuesday, Bradley walked into my study without knocking, as was his habit. He was wearing an expensive designer jacket that I knew was paid for with my daughter's hard-earned salary. The sound of his heavy steps on my hardwood floor made my temples throb. He settled into the leather chair opposite me, crossed his legs, and spoke in the condescending tone he always used when he wanted to demand something. "Howard," he said, "I have wonderful news. My entire family is coming to spend Christmas here. Is only 25 people. Only 25 people." He spoke as if it were a minor detail, as if I were a machine designed to cook and clean without ever getting tired. I saw the calculation in his eyes as he pulled out his phone and began listing them off like a grocery list. I already spoke with my Uncle Donald, my sister Diana, my brother-in-law Philip. Everyone is coming. My nieces and nephews will be here. It is going to be the perfect Christmas. He took a dramatic pause, expecting my usual quiet resignation. "Of course you will handle everything, the food, the cleaning, serving the tables. My family expects a certain level of hospitality." His words hit me like physical blows. I remembered all the times I had spent days in the kitchen preparing dinners for his friends while he took all the credit. I remembered cleaning up the mess after his parties until 2 in the morning while he slept. I remembered feeling invisible in my own home. "We will need at least 3 large turkeys," Bradley continued, completely ignoring my silence, "and that pecan pie you make. Oh, and you will need to decorate the entire living room so it looks good for photos." He waited for my usual, "All right, Bradley, I will take care of it." But this time was different. Something inside me had broken for good. I looked him in the eyes with a serenity that surprised even myself. "Perfect," I repeated. "It will be a perfect Christmas for you all because I won't be here." The silence that followed was deafening. Bradley blinked several times. The smug look on his face vanished completely. "What do you mean? You won't be here?" he finally stammered, his voice cracking. "Exactly what I said. I am going on vacation. You all can cook, clean, and serve yourselves. I am not your employee." I watched the color drain from his face. He stood up from the chair and began pacing the room. "This is ridiculous. Claire is not going to agree to this. You cannot just leave before the holidays. Why can't I? This is my house." Those words landed like a bomb. Bradley stared at me, his jaw slack. Just then we heard the front door open. Claire was home from work. Bradley immediately ran out of the study like a child running to report a classmate to the teacher. "Claire, your father has lost his mind. He says he won't help with Christmas. He says he is going on vacation and leaving us alone with 25 guests." I heard their voices in the living room. Claire sounded worried, and Bradley was fueling the fire. A few minutes later, they both entered my office. My daughter looked exhausted after a long day at her corporate job, but her expression was defensive. Bradley stood behind her with a triumphant look, clearly wanting her to put me in my place. "Dad," Claire began in a frustrated tone. Bradley told me about your decision. Don't you think you are being a bit dramatic? Dramatic? My own daughter was calling me dramatic for refusing to be a servant to her husband's family. I felt a cold disappointment settle in my chest. No, Claire. I am not being dramatic. I am being clear. But Dad, it is Christmas. It is a time for family. Bradley already invited everyone. We cannot cancel now. I didn't tell you to cancel. I said I won't be here. Bradley stepped forward, positioning himself between Claire and me. See what I mean? He is being completely unreasonable. What will my family think? How are we supposed to explain this? Tell them the truth, I replied calmly. That you invited 25 people without asking the owner of the house, and that you were wrong to assume I would work for you for free. Claire sighed, running a hand through her hair. Dad, be realistic. Bradley cannot cook for 25 people by himself, and I have to work right up until the holiday. Why can't he? I have cooked for your parties for 2 years. It is time he learned to do it himself. But hiring a caterer costs a fortune, Bradley shrieked. Why should we spend thousands of dollars when you can… He stopped mid-sentence as he realized he had almost exposed his true thoughts, when I can do it for free. I finished the sentence for him, just like always. Like the servant you think I am. Silence filled the study. Claire and Bradley exchanged uneasy glances. I knew they were trying to find a way to manipulate me, but they did not know that I had been preparing for this day for 3 months. I had very solid reasons for doing this, reasons that would soon make their world of lies collapse completely. Dad, think about it, Claire said, trying to use a gentler tone. It is only for 1 week. After Christmas, everything goes back to normal. Normal? Your normal is that I am invisible except when you need me to work. No, Claire. Things are not going back to normal because I am leaving tomorrow morning. They stood frozen. I smiled, turned back to my desk and began packing my briefcase. Tomorrow morning, when they woke up, they would have to face the reality they had chosen to ignore. That night, while Bradley and Claire were arguing in desperate whispers in the living room, I locked the door of my study and sat down at my laptop. It was time to review the files that had led me to this moment. This was not a sudden decision. It was a calculated plan that had been forming for 3 months, ever since I discovered the betrayal that changed everything. It started in September. I was looking for a set of blueprints in the filing cabinet in my home office, a space Bradley frequently used when he claimed to be working on his technological startup. In the bottom drawer, I found a thick manila folder that did not belong to my engineering projects. The tab was unlabeled, but when I opened it, my blood ran cold. Inside were bank statements, credit card applications, and loan documents. Bradley had been living a double life of financial deception. He had accumulated over $50,000 in credit card debt. Some accounts were in Claire's name, which she apparently knew nothing about. But the most shocking discovery was a set of documents for a home equity line of credit, or HELOC, for $65,000. The application was in my name, using my house as collateral, and at the bottom of the page, in neat cursive, was my signature, but I had never signed it. Bradley had forged my signature. Under Florida statutes, Section 83101, forgery of a land record or financial document is a third-degree felony. Furthermore, because I am over 60, this fell directly under Florida statute Section 825.103, which defines the exploitation of an elderly person's assets as a major criminal offense. He was trying to borrow $65 against my home to fund his failing business and luxury lifestyle. The next day, I didn't confront him. As an engineer, I knew that anger without proof was useless. I hired a private investigator who specialized in financial fraud. Over the next 6 weeks, the investigator uncovered the full scope of Bradley's operations. Not only had Bradley forged my signature on the HELOC, but he had also lied to his own family about his success. He had told his wealthy uncle, Donald Miller, that his startup was thriving and that I had agreed to match any investment Donald made. Based on this lie, Donald had wired Bradley $30,000 in October. Bradley had also approached his brother-in-law, Philip, who worked in real estate, asking him to evaluate my Naples house for a quick sale, claiming that I was planning to move into an assisted living facility, and wanted to give the cash to him and Claire. But the final straw was a series of printed emails between Bradley and a friend. In them, Bradley wrote, "The old man is soft. Once we get the HELOC approved, we will convince Claire that he's getting too old to live alone. We'll sell the Naples place, put him in a condo, and use the rest of the equity to launch the firm. Claire will do whatever I tell her. Reading those words, the last trace of paternal patience I had for Bradley died. They did not see me as a father or a grandfather. They saw me as a financial resource to be harvested. I immediately took legal action. First, I met with my longtime attorney to secure the deed of my house. We placed the property into an irrevocable trust, ensuring that no sale, mortgage, or transfer could ever be executed without my physical presence and notarized approval. This rendered Bradley's forged HELOC application completely void from the beginning, or void ab initio as my lawyer called it. Second, I did not warn Bradley. Instead, I contacted the key members of his family directly. I sent a polite, formal email to his uncle Donald, his sister Diana, who was a professional forensic auditor, and his brother-in-law Philip. I wrote that I was deeply concerned about Bradley's financial stress and wanted to align on how to support the young couple. I attached the audited bank statements and the forged HELOC application, asking if they could help me understand Bradley's business expenses. The response was explosive, though quiet. Uncle Donald was furious that his $30,000 investment had been spent on designer clothes and rental cars. Diana, the auditor, was mortified by her brother's illegal actions. Philip was outraged that he had been used to inspect my home under false pretenses. They wanted to confront Bradley immediately, but I suggested a different plan. "Let's wait until the Christmas gathering," I told Donald over the phone. "He has invited you all to my house. Let him host you. Let us see how he explains the situation in person." Donald had agreed. In fact, he was so eager to confront his nephew that he and Diana decided to arrive in Naples a day earlier than Bradley expected. Now, sitting in my dark study on Tuesday night, I checked my email one last time. There was a message from Donald. "Howard, we have adjusted our flights. Diana and I will be at your house on the morning of December 23rd at 8 a.m. We want to have a private conversation with Bradley before the rest of the family arrives. I assume you will be there?" I smiled and typed a quick reply. "Donald, I have an unexpected commitment and must travel tomorrow morning. However, Bradley and Claire are fully aware of the gathering and will be there to host you. The house is yours." I shut down my laptop. The trap was set at 6 a.m. on Wednesday. My alarm rang. I felt lighter than I had in years. I packed a single suitcase with my best resort wear. I did not need much. I was not going to Miami to visit my brother. As I had lied to Claire and Bradley, I had booked a luxury suite at a 5-star oceanfront resort just 45 minutes away in Marco Island for the next 12 days. Before leaving the house, I made a few final preparations. I walked into the kitchen and completely emptied the refrigerator and the pantry. I packed the fresh steaks, the fruits, the milk, and the vegetables into a cooler to take with me. If Bradley wanted to host 25 people, he would have to buy his own food. Next, I unlocked the dining room cabinet, took out all my sterling silver cutlery, my fine china, and my crystal glasses, and locked them in the secure closet in my master bedroom. Finally, I called the cleaning service that came twice a week and canceled the scheduled visits for the holidays. Bradley and Claire had taken credit for my clean house for 2 years. Now they could see what it took to sweep the floors themselves. I left a short note on the kitchen island. Had to leave early for my trip. The keys are on the counter. Have a perfect Christmas. Dad. At 7 a.m., my taxi arrived. As we drove away from the Palm Line driveway, I looked back at the house. For 2 years, it had been my prison. Today, it was the stage for Bradley's undoing. By 9 a.m., I was checked into my suite on Marco Island. The view from my balcony was spectacular, miles of white sand and the calm blue water of the Gulf of Mexico. I sat in a lounge chair, ordered a fresh pot of coffee, and listened to the gentle sound of the waves. It was the first time in 2 years that I didn't feel the weight of someone else's expectations pressing down on my chest. My phone remained silent until 10:45 a.m. Then the calls began. The first call was from Claire. I let it ring. The second was from Bradley. I let it ring. Then came a series of text messages. Escalating in tone, Claire wrote, "Dad, where are you? We found your note, but the refrigerator is completely empty. There is no food in the pantry, and the fine china is locked. Where did you put everything? Please call me." Bradley followed with, "Howard, this isn't funny. The cleaning lady just texted saying you canceled the service. We have guests arriving tomorrow. We need the keys to the china cabinet immediately. Call us back." I waited another hour before calling Claire back. When she answered, her voice was high-pitched and strained. "Dad, where are you? What is going on? The house is a mess, and there's literally nothing in the kitchen." "Good morning, Claire," I said, taking a sip of my iced tea. "I am on my vacation, as I told you yesterday. I am currently sitting by the pool. But Dad, Bradley's family is coming. We went to make breakfast and there isn't even milk in the fridge." "Why did you empty the kitchen?" "Because it is my food, Claire. I bought it, and since I won't be there to eat it, I took it with me. If you are hosting a party of 25 people, you need to buy the groceries. That is how hosting works. And the china." Bradley shrieked in the background. I could hear his voice getting closer to the phone. "Where are the plates, the silverware?" "Locked away," I replied calmly. "Those are my late wife's family heirlooms. I do not want them damaged or lost during a crowded party. You can buy paper plates at the supermarket. They are very practical." "Paper plates?" Bradley took the phone from Claire. "Howard, you are humiliating us. My Uncle Donald is a wealthy man. I cannot serve him dinner on paper plates." "This is sabotage." "It is not sabotage, Bradley. It is reality. You wanted to show your family how successful you are. A successful man does not rely on his retired father-in-law to provide the food and the plates. I am sure you can handle this." "You are 32 years old." "Dad, please," Claire pleaded, taking the phone back. "At least tell us where you are. What if there is an emergency?" "If there is an emergency, call 911. Otherwise, you two are adults. Figure it out. Have a nice Christmas." I hung up and turned my phone to silent mode. For the rest of the afternoon, the screen lit up with missed calls, 14 from Claire, 22 from Bradley. But I ignored them all, spent the afternoon at the hotel spa, and enjoyed a quiet dinner of grilled sea bass at the resort's restaurant. The next morning, December 23rd, was the day the trap would spring. At 7:45 a.m., I received a text from Donald Miller. "Howard, we have just landed and are taking a rental car straight to the house. Diana is with me. We will be there in 30 minutes. I turned my phone's ringer back on. I wanted to be available when the storm hit. At 8:30 a.m., my phone rang. It was Donald. His voice was grim. "Howard, we are at the house. What is going on here?" "What do you see, Donald?" I asked. "I see a disaster," Donald said, his voice rising in frustration. Bradley was still in his pajamas when he opened the door. "The house is freezing because the thermostat is locked. There is no coffee, no food, and Claire is in the kitchen crying while trying to order groceries online. Bradley told us you had a sudden family emergency and had to fly to Chicago. But the house looks like it was cleared out by a bailiff." I took a deep breath. "Donald, I didn't fly to Chicago. I am at a resort down the road. I left because Bradley demanded that I cook and clean for 25 of your relatives without even asking me. He told me I was senseless and expected me to act as his unpaid maid." There was a long silence on the line. Then I heard Donald speak to someone else in the room. "Diana, come listen to this," I continued, explaining the situation clearly. "And Donald, that is not the main reason I left. Did you receive the documents I sent you last week?" "Yes." Diana's voice came onto the speakerphone. She sounded sharp and professional. "Howard, this is Diana. I reviewed the HELOC application you sent. The signature on that document is a clear forgery. I also checked the business registration. Bradley used to get the $30,000 loan from Uncle Donald. The company has no active clients and no revenue. He has been using our family's money to pay off credit cards under Claire's name." "Is Claire there?" I asked. "Yes, she is standing right here," Donald said. "She is looking at us like we are speaking another language. She claims she knew nothing about any loans or credit cards." "Put her on, please," I said. A second later, I heard Claire's shaky voice. "Dad? What are they talking about? What loan? What credit cards?" "Claire," I said softly but firmly, "Bradley forged my signature to try and borrow $65,000 against my house. He also took out credit cards in your name without your knowledge, accumulating over $50,000 in debt. He has been lying to his family to get money, and he was planning to convince you to sell my house to pay off his debts." "No, that's a lie." "Bradley wouldn't do that," Claire sobbed. I heard Bradley's voice yelling in the background. "He's lying. The old man is trying to ruin my reputation. He's always hated me." Howard is not lying. Diana's voice cut through the noise, cold and absolute. Bradley, I am a forensic auditor. I have the bank routing numbers here. The $30 Zoran Uncle Donald gave you was transferred directly to a personal account used to pay off a luxury retail card. And I have the HELOC application copy. It has your IP address on the digital submission log. You committed identity fraud against your wife and her father. The background noise erupted into chaos. I could hear Bradley shouting, Claire crying hysterically, and Donald's deep voice commanding order. Howard, Donald said, returning to the phone. We are staying here. The rest of the family arrives tomorrow. But this is no longer a holiday. It is an intervention. Bradley has some serious explaining to do, and we are going to get to the bottom of every single dollar he stole from us. Thank you, Donald, I said. I appreciate your understanding. Enjoy your vacation, Howard. You earned it. We will handle the trash here. I hung up. I stood on my balcony looking out at the ocean. The first part of my plan was complete. Bradley's house of cards was falling, and he had no one to blame but himself. For the next 24 hours, my hotel room on Marco Island became the command center for the collapse of Bradley's empire of lies. I received regular updates from Diana Miller, who seemed to relish her role as the family investigator. On the afternoon of December 23rd, the other Miller relatives began to arrive. Instead of the festive holiday gathering Bradley had promised, they walked into a financial audit. Diana had set up a folding table in my empty dining room. Spread across it were bank statements, credit logs, and the forged HELOC document. Uncle Donald did not hide the truth. As each relative walked through the door, Donald called them into the dining room and showed them the evidence. The reaction was a mix of shock, embarrassment, and fury. Bradley's cousin, who had lent him $5,000 for a short-term business cash flow issue, realized the money was gone. Two other aunts who had contributed $8,000 each under the impression that I was backing the venture were devastated. The most painful revelation was the lie about my will. Bradley had told several family members that I had designated Claire as the sole beneficiary of my estate, including my Naples home, and that I had signed a document allowing Claire to use the house as collateral for their business. He had even shown them a fake copy of my will, which he had drafted himself. When the relatives realized that my will did not mention Claire as a sole beneficiary and that my house was locked in a secure trust, they panicked. The loans they had given Bradley were called in immediately. At 6:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve, Claire called me. Her voice was quiet, hollow, and exhausted. "Dad," she whispered. "Can we talk?" "Of course, Claire, I am here." "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I was so blind. I believed everything he said. He told me he was doing all of this for our future. He told me you were just old-fashioned and didn't understand modern business. I didn't know about the credit cards. I didn't know about the signature. Dad, he almost ruined us." "Claire," I said, keeping my voice gentle but firm, "Bradley did not almost ruin you. He did ruin his own reputation. But you are my daughter, and I will protect you. But you must understand that there are consequences. Bradley cannot stay in my house. Not in the main house, and not in the guest suite." "I know," she said, her voice trembling. "Uncle Donald told him he has to sign a confession and a repayment plan tonight. Or Donald is going to the Naples Police Department to file criminal charges for grand theft. Diana is calculating the total debt. It is over $110,000. And Bradley? How is he reacting?" "He is locked in the guest suite," Claire said. "He keeps saying everyone is against him. He tried to pack a bag to leave, but Uncle Donald took his car keys. Donald told him if he runs, the police will be waiting at the airport." "Dad, what am I going to do?" "You are going to let the law handle it, Claire. I am returning tomorrow morning. I am bringing my attorney, Victor Stone. We have prepared the necessary documents to protect our assets and set clear boundaries. I want you to stay strong." "I will, Dad. I love you." "I love you too, Claire." I hung up. I felt a mixture of sadness for my daughter, but also a deep sense of relief. The truth was out. The manipulation had failed. The next morning, December 24th, was Christmas Eve. The Florida sun was warm and bright. I packed my bag, checked out of the resort, and met my lawyer, Victor Stone, at his office in Naples. Victor was a sharp, experienced estate attorney. He had been my advisor for a decade. He handed me a folder containing several notarized documents. "Everything is ready, Howard," Victor said as we walked to his car. We have the formal revocation of the occupancy agreement for the guest suite. Under Florida Chapter 83, because Bradley did not pay rent and has engaged in criminal activity on the premises, we can execute an immediate termination of his tenancy. We also have the affidavits regarding the forged HELOC signature, which we will submit to the bank to ensure they close the fraudulent file permanently. And the notice of trespass, I asked Riddy. Victor confirmed. If Bradley sets foot on your property after today, he can be arrested immediately. Perfect, I said. Let's go home. As we drove back to my neighborhood, I felt no anxiety. For 2 years, returning home had filled me with dread. Today, I was returning as the owner, the engineer who had fixed the structural flaws in his own family. When we arrived at 10 a.m., the driveway was filled with rental cars. The front yard was quiet, but when I opened the front door, the atmosphere inside was heavy. The living room was crowded. Bradley's relatives were sitting on my couches, looking tired and solemn. There were no decorations, no tree, and the only food on the coffee table was a stack of cardboard boxes from a local pizza place. Claire was sitting near the kitchen, her eyes red. Bradley was standing in the corner of the dining room, looking disheveled, his designer jacket replaced by a wrinkled shirt. Uncle Donald and Diana were sitting at the dining table, folders open before them. As I walked in, the room fell completely silent. "Howard," Donald said, standing up and extending his hand. "Thank you for letting us stay. We are sorry for the state of your home." "It is fine, Donald," I said, shaking his hand. "I am glad you are here." I turned to look at Bradley. He didn't look me in the eye. He stared at the floor, his hands clenched in his pockets. "Bradley," I said, my voice echoing in the quiet house, "I believe you have something that belongs to me." Bradley didn't move. He stood in the corner of my dining room, his chest rising and falling as he glared at me. The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone was waiting. I extended my hand. "The keys to the guest suite, Bradley." Now Bradley looked at Claire, hoping for support, but she turned her head away. He looked at Uncle Donald, whose stern face was carved from granite. Finally, with trembling fingers, Bradley reached into his pocket, pulled out the brass key, and tossed it onto the wooden table. It clinked loudly against the polished surface. Victor Stone, my attorney, stepped forward. He opened his leather folder and laid 3 documents in front of Bradley. "Mr. Miller," Victor said in a clear, professional voice, "I am Victor Stone, counsel for Mr. Howard Vance. I am serving you with a formal revocation of occupancy. Under Florida Statutes, Chapter 83, your permission to reside in the guest suite above the garage is terminated immediately due to criminal activity on the premises. You have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings." Bradley swallowed hard. "Criminal activity? What criminal activity?" Victor pointed to the second document. "This is an affidavit of forgery, which has been notarized. We are submitting it to the lender today, certifying that the signature on the home equity line of credit application was forged. Under Florida Statute Section 831.01, this is a felony. In addition, we are filing a report with the Florida Department of Children and Families for elder financial exploitation under Section 825.103. Bradley's eyes widened with panic. He took a step back, shaking his head. "Howard, please. It was for the business. I was going to pay it back before you even noticed." "Claire, tell them. I did it for us." Claire stood up. She looked at him with an expression of pure disgust. "There is no us anymore, Bradley," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "I went to the bank this morning with Diana. I saw the credit card statements you opened in my name. I saw the debt. I am calling my own lawyer this afternoon. I am filing for divorce." "Divorce?" Bradley shrieked. "Claire, you can't do this. I made mistakes, but I love you." "You loved my father's money," Claire replied, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You loved my credit rating. You loved having a free house. You never loved me." Uncle Donald stood up, placing a heavy hand on Bradley's shoulder, forcing him to sit in the dining chair. "Bradley," Donald said, his voice deep and menacing, "you are going to listen to me very carefully. Diana has drafted a formal confession and a promissory note. You owe me $30,000. You owe your cousin Evelyn $5,000. You owe Aunts Margaret and Valeria $16,000. The total is $51,000 in personal loans from this family. You are going to sign this confession right now." Bradley looked at the pen Donald placed in front of him. "What if I don't sign?" "If you don't sign, Donald said. I am walking out of this door, going to the Naples Police Department, and handing them this audit folder along with Howard's forgery affidavit. You will spend Christmas in a county jail cell, and you will be facing a minimum of 5 years in state prison. Sign the paper. Bradley's hand shook so hard he could barely hold the pen. But he knew he had no exit. He pressed the pen to the paper and scribbled his signature on the confession and the promissory note. Diana immediately took the document, reviewed it, and placed it in her folder. Good, Donald said. You will make monthly payments of $1,000 starting January 1st. If you miss a single payment, or if you ever contact Claire or Howard again, I will file the criminal charges myself. Now, go pack your bags. You are leaving this house today. Bradley stood up, looking small and defeated. He walked out of the back door toward the guest suite to pack his clothes, followed closely by Philip, who wanted to ensure Bradley did not damage the property. The dining room remained quiet. The Miller family members stood up one by one. They walked over to me, shook my hand, and offered their sincere apologies. Howard, Donald said, I am deeply sorry for my nephew's actions. We had no idea he was exploiting your generosity. It is not your fault, Donald, I replied. You did the right thing by confronting him. We are leaving for a hotel in town, Donald said. The Christmas gathering is canceled, but we are glad the truth is out. We wish you a peaceful holiday. They gathered their bags and left, taking Bradley with them. The front door closed, and the house was suddenly quiet. Only Claire and I remained. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, looking at the empty countertops. Dad, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. I let him treat you like a servant. I should have stood up for you. I walked over and pulled her into a hug. Claire cried against my shoulder, the tension of the last 2 years finally escaping. It is over now, Claire, I said. We have a lot of work to do to clean up the financial mess, but we will do it together. I spent the rest of Christmas Eve restoring my home. I unlocked the master bedroom closet and brought out the fine china and the silver cutlery. I went to the grocery store, which was crowded, but I didn't care. I bought a small prime rib roast, some fresh vegetables, and the ingredients for my famous pecan pie. That evening, the house was warm and smelled of roasted meat and sweet pecans. There were no 25 guests. There were no Instagram photos. There was just Claire and me, sitting at the dining table, eating dinner off the fine china. For the first time in 5 years, the silence in my house did not feel heavy. It felt like peace. It felt like home.